Hey everybody, it's Mr. Juarez. So today is December 4th, and we're still in Unit 3, and we'll be reviewing Week 14 for your assignment for today. So you're due now. It's about to pop up on the side, but tell me a joke, and please be appropriate with it. And if you don't know a joke, just type in the question something you like about yourself that you would like me to know. Don't forget about my contact information if you have any questions that come up during your practice questions. It's all here. And then our vocabulary. So if you'd like to read through this vocabulary by yourself, just pause the video. But there's going to be a question about the vocabulary, that's about to pop up. And then our objectives for today. All right, so we're going to start with dividing a fraction by a fraction. And then here are just our steps to remind us how do we divide a fraction by a fraction. Remember, we keep that first fraction the same. We switch the division sign to a multiplication sign, and then we flip the second fraction upside down. So what that looks like in our example, 5/6 divided by 1/7, is, remember, we keep the first fraction the same, 5/6. We switch that division sign into a multiplication sign, and then we gotta flip 1/7. So it'd be 7/1. And then when we multiply fractions, we just multiply straight across. So 5 times 7 is 35. And 6 times 1 is 6. So our answer is 35/6 for this problem. And remember, we only flipped the fraction because we started with division. If we had started with multiplication, we wouldn't have flipped the second fraction. All right, next we have our practice problems for dividing a fraction by a fraction. Don't forget, if you forget our steps, they're here. But here in a sec, it's going to pop up with a question for you to be able to put in number 1, number 2, and number 3. All right, so if you're on this part of the video, you are on your part to be able to look at your answers. So for number 1, we got 35/10, and if you simplified it, you got 7/2. And then for number 2, 14/5. For number 3, we have 36/7. And this is just to be able to check to see where you went wrong, and then be able to understand what you're going to do better for next time, like when we have it on the test. Next up, we have dividing mixed numbers. So to divide mixed numbers, the only step that we're adding to dividing fractions is that we have to turn our mixed numbers into improper fractions, just like how we've been doing the entire time. So we only have one mixed number in this problem, so we're going to make this mixed number into an improper fraction. And remember that denominator is not going to change, so our fraction should be over 2. We do 2 times 2, which is 4, and then we add 1, so our fraction is 5/2. And I'm just going to rewrite this just so that we don't get confused on where we're at. And remember, since we're starting with division, we have to flip the second fraction after we switch it to multiplication. So we keep that first fraction the same, switch that division sign into multiplication, and then flip the second fraction, so it should now be 2/5. And now we just multiply straight across. 3 times 2 is 6, and 5 times 5 is 25. So our answer is 6/25. Next up, we have our practice problems for dividing mixed numbers. Just like last time, it'll pop up for where you're going to put number 1, number 2, and number 3. All Alright, so if you're on this part of the video, this is where I have our answers for the practice for dividing mixed numbers. Number 1 is 80 over 36, or if you tried simplifying it, you could have gotten 40 over 18, or 20 over 9. For number 2, we have 40 over 9, and then for number 3, we have 25 over 28. All right, now we're on to multiplying fractions. And remember, since we're multiplying fractions, our two steps are just multiply straight across. The numerator times the numerator. Went back for a second. And then the denominator times the denominator. So if we did this, we would have 7 times 5 on top and 8 times 6 on bottom. And remember, we do not flip this second fraction because we didn't start with division. We started with multiplication. So 7 times 5 is 35. And 8 times 6 is... And 8 times 6 is 48. So our answer is 35 over 48. Next up, we have our practice for multiplying fractions. So just like last time, it'll pop up for where to put number 1, number 2, and number 3. All right, and then here are our answers for the multiplying fractions section. So we have number 1 at 7/10, number 2 at 2/30, or if you simplified it, 1/15, and then number 3 at 4/9. All right, now we're on multiplying mixed fractions. The only thing we're adding to this step of multiplying fractions is that when we have mixed numbers, we got to make it an improper fraction. This would actually say mixed numbers, not mixed fractions, but you guys know what I'm talking about. So these two mixed numbers, we got to make improper fractions. So remember that this fraction would be over 5, and that second one would be over 3. We don't change those denominators, so 5 times 4 is 20, and then we add 2, so it'd be 22 over 5, and then 3 times 1 is 3, and add 1 would be 4 over 3. So then we just multiply straight across, so we do 22 times 4. I don't know that off the top of my head, so I gotta work it out. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 2 is 8, so we get 88 over 5 times 3, which is 15. So it'd be 88 over 15 is our answer for this problem. Next up, we have our practice problems for multiplying mixed fractions. So here in a sec, the spaces to put in number 1, 2, and 3 will be in, will pop up. All right, and so if you're on this part, you are on your answers for multiplying mixed fractions to see where you went wrong, if you went wrong. But number 1 is 64 over 9. Number 2 is 135 over 20. Number 3 is 99 over 45. And here I have all the process of what I would do if I was shown, if I showed all my work. All right, and then the last section for today is what we did yesterday, which is dividing and multiplying in word problems, and specifically fractions. So we're going to look for keywords. What fraction of, so if we ever have a problem with of, and specifically, explicitly saying like what fraction of, that would equal multiplying. But if we're making something smaller or separating into groups, that would mean we're dividing. So here we have number 1. A pizza is cut into slices that are each 1/6 of the whole. Mr. Juarez is going to eat 1/2 of the whole pizza. How many slices will Mr. Juarez eat? So here in number 1, we're talking about making something smaller, like separating into a group of how much pizza Mr. Juarez is going to eat. So here in a sec, it's going to ask you if is this problem multiplying or dividing? So if you put dividing, you are correct. Dividing. And then for number 2, you'll answer this question here in a sec. It'll ask you where to put the answer, but just wait on that. And then we're going to go to number 2 to determine whether it's dividing or multiplying. So we have Carlos spent 1 1/4 hours doing his math homework. He spent 1 1/4 as much time practicing piano. How many hours did Carlos spend practicing piano? So here we have an instance where of does not pop up, but this actually is a problem where we are going to multiply. Because we know that it is more than what we know that he practiced piano more than what he practiced on his math homework. So we know that we're adding more. So we're going to multiply. Go ahead and start working these problems out. So remember, number 1, you're going to divide, and number 2, you're going to multiply. Work these problems out, and then it's going to pop up here in a sec of where to put number 1 and number 2. All right, so if you're at this point of the video, you've already worked out your problems. So in number 1, we should have divided 1/2 divided by 1/6 to get our answer of 3. And then for number 2, we should have multiplied 1 1/4 times 1 1/4 to get 25 over 16. And then that is all for today. You guys have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you all on Monday.